Hello and welcome to the Evolving HubSpot Podcast by Huble Digital, a podcast where we explore the topics that matter the most in the world of HubSpot. I'm Matthew Creswick, and in this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Maria, Consulting Team Lead from EMEA here at Huble. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Very excited. And
Fantastic.
I know we skipped my surname for a reason, but let's say my whole name is Maria Christoforidou. It's a very difficult
Yes.
Greek surname, so I don't blame you for skipping that.
Well, and for listeners, I asked Maria before the podcast how best to try and pronounce your surname, and she gave me permission to skip it and just go with
Of
Maria,
course.
which is cool. So, Maria, how are you on this fine Friday in the UK?
I'm good. I'm good. The weather is changing here in Scotland. It's getting a little bit colder. I'm one of those people that are already looking forward to Christmas. I know, don't get on me. I know it's not even Halloween yet, but yeah, it's been a few busy weeks as always, but yeah, all good.
Good. I am almost ashamed to say I'm also slightly one of them people. Maybe not so excited for Christmas, but more. Um, Rowley, one of our sales directors, and myself always say that we both winter well, in the sense that pair of jeans, a nice jumper, in front of a fire is kind of my idea of a good winter. So yes, looking forward to it as well. Um, so I guess Maria, we as you referenced, it's been a busy few weeks. Obviously, we are kind of
Mm.
a month or so out from HubSpot's inbound event. The topic we're going to cover today is predominantly AI inside and outside of the world of HubSpot. I referenced kind of the inbound event because it was a core event where HubSpot announced a kind of a ton of new products in the AI world, as well as a ton of new products, kind of with outstanding kind of the AI involvement. Um, how obviously within your role at Hubble, being consulting team lead, you work with clients on kind of marketing consulting, campaign strategies, etc. Maybe you can start by giving us a bit of a kind of overview of maybe the last 6 months, let's call it, of the AI explosion in our industry. Kind of how have you found it? How are you finding your feet? How are you kind of seeing clients' requests and requirements within the AI world?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting experience. It's funny how before COVID we weren't even thinking about ChatGPT or we weren't talking about AI as much. I wouldn't say that AI tools didn't exist. AI tools have been around for years, many, many years, and even HubSpot before these recent updates at Inbound, they have been taking advantage of machine learning in the portals, right? They had tools such as data quality toolings, predictive lead scoring, conversation intelligence that are all AI based. So it isn't necessarily something new, but I would say, like it happens in marketing, this has become more of a bigger trend right now, and everyone is talking about it. And I would say that the focus right now is more on generative AI rather than predictive like it was before. Now, is it a revolution yet? I think this might be one of my controversial opinions that I'm gonna say on this podcast, but I don't think there's a revolution just yet. I think we are witnessing the start of it for sure, and there's gonna be a lot of great changes and there's gonna be a massive impact on the industry. But I don't think we're there yet. I think we're learning, and we've got a lot of early adopters and a lot of people that are keen to look at how they can leverage these tools, which is amazing, right? So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting evolution, I think, since we're talking about evolving as well. I think it's gonna be an interesting way to see how people take advantage of these tools and not just doing so for the sake of it being a trend.
Yeah, and I guess interesting. So good statement. AI is not a revolution as of yet. And you spoke about kind of early adopters, and there is a ton of people, in the early adopter phase here, diving. There was a ton of people diving into Chat GPT very early on, and obviously there's been a kind of a ton of tools since come out, and it almost feels like at the moment where every week there's another tool that in marketing you feel like you should be on or you feel like you should be using. I guess that there's perhaps also a ton of people who aren't those early adopters, and actually a ton of people who are probably sitting back and kind of evaluating the landscape at the moment and trying to pick or pinpoint the moment where they may be kind of diving in. I guess from what you're saying, maybe that's how you're seeing the market at the moment.
Yeah, I'm seeing, and I think we're all seeing this. It's very much right now, it feels like it's all very much focused on content, right? And I think that is diminishing the power of AI and what it can actually do. As I said, we've seen other tools in HubSpot before that I found them quite powerful, like the conversation intelligence to be able to scan through summaries of notes and to tell you what is being discussed on calls. It can be a tremendous tool for the sales teams and for the marketing teams to feed that back into their campaigns. So yeah, I see a lot of focus on content, which I think is not doing it AI its full justice. It's definitely helping, but I think there's a lot more, especially when it comes to other more costly part, perhaps, of marketing, and not just thinking about B2C, but also thinking about B2B. And one of my favorite examples to use on that is thinking about market research, right? So say you are a B2C company and you're selling t-shirts, for example, or you're selling toothpaste or whatever, something that is relatively easier to market compared to, say, for example, a new marketing platform or a new IT product. To be able to do market research when you're targeting an audience of, customers that everybody wears a t-shirt and you can get 20 people in a room to do a focus group or interviews, it's a much I don't want to again diminish how effective that is, but it is a comparatively easier process compared to getting, for example, 20 managing directors to come into the same room and talk about a new IT product. And I think that's where AI can really help. Now, it doesn't replace what we do. And I think that's another important aspect of AI that we need to remember, that AI is a tool the same way that when marketing automation tools started going on into the market, they weren't meant to replace what we do as humans or how these processes are operated. They're meant to complement what we do. They're meant to support us, to empower us, to encourage us to do better work and do it more efficiently. So I think market research is going to be one of those, because I'm able to use, for example, one of these AI tools to search, research studies and other focus group and other surveys that may have been done that are available on the internet that I may not be able to find, with one simple Google search. So to be able to scan and get that kind of value of output, that is obviously extremely helpful. So I think there's going to be other applications. Data is another. Data analysis is also going to be massive to be able to find patterns like that. And obviously with marketing automation, yes, we kind of do that to an extent, but it's all again predefined and we have to think about the rules that we want to put in place. Well, AI is kind of pushing the limits of that, giving us visibility of patterns that we may not have recognized before.
So you're not in fear of your job right now with AI replacing you, no?
No, I don't think, again, I don't think it's going to be replacing us. I think there's going to be a shift in roles as well that we see in marketing. And again, I like to compare it to marketing automation because I'm sure that when marketing automation platforms like HubSpot became more prevalent, there were people that were like, oh, are these now going to replace marketers and how we do things? And we can see now, many, many years later, that that hasn't happened. What's happened is a change in the skills that are required for these roles, a change in how we operate them. But I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where these are going to be replacing. And especially with AI, what we've seen so far from the outputs of AI, and let's use a simple example of content, right? We can see that the quality is not there. It takes effort to get it to a point where it uses the right kind of voice. Even if you tell it, if you give those directions from the start, there's a whole science behind the prompts that need to be used in AI. And that's where I see as well the shift in the roles, because we now are seeing roles coming out like marketing prompt engineer, which I'm sure can be compared again to marketing automation specialist. Now, I'm a little bit wary of the word engineer, right? I don't think we're necessarily engineers. For me, an engineer is a developer, a software architect. I think we will have specialists for sure, but that input by the specialist is going to be really important. I actually saw, I can't remember and I can recall where I saw this phrase, but I thought it was perfect in the way I described it. Someone said we're going to go from being creators to being curators or editors of the content that needs to be in. And I thought that is actually spot on. There's still going to be a need for editing and and tweaking and fine tuning the content or whatever output that is to ensure that it fits our value.
All right, awesome. So I guess we we being a HubSpot partner, Maria, and obviously this podcast being kind of the Evolving HubSpot podcast, we've spoken there around the way that AI is impacting kind of the industry as a whole, and I think it was an interesting point you raised around how predominantly people are using it for content creation right now, which is kind of a minimal percentage or piece or kind of opportunity of what's possible with AI. HubSpot kind of have approached or built AI into the system in kind of three different ways at the moment, right? That first one is very much that content creation piece where at Inbound we saw kind of, especially in the marketing hub, the ability to create meta descriptions and email line, email subject lines and emails and blogs and the like, ultimately kind of plugging into OpenAI and allowing that to happen. But you raised the kind of data analysis piece, which is a relatively new piece within HubSpot, and I think that's an interesting one for me because it comes from a place of you being able to spot things in data that you weren't looking for. It's almost having like a
Mm.
data analysis as a new employee, but you obviously not having the overheads of a salary and everything alongside it. I guess, do you see, you know, is that something which you predict HubSpot are going to be doing much more in the future in terms of that kind of bringing the data to you as opposed to you having to find it or build prompts to go and look for it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking at the data and being able to interpret what is happening is the foundation for optimization, right? You can't get better and grow if you don't understand what's already happening. And I can see HubSpot's focus has always been on the data and making sure that your data is clean and well maintained in the portal as well. Now with these tools, I think they're already starting to scratch the surface again. For example, we've got the AI generated reports. We know that reporting is a very time consuming process for a lot of marketeers. It's not always easy to do, especially if you think about enterprise clients where we've got hundreds of custom properties and integrations and data coming from various sources. It's really important to be able to surface the right information to be able to improve. So with the AI generated reports, we're already seeing a shift towards that. What I would love to see more from HubSpot, and I'm sure it's going to come, is sort of a reverse engineering rather than looking at, as most marketeers do, the funnel like from top to bottom and trying to understand what's happening. I want to reverse engineer that. Look at your customers' data and say, okay, what's worked for them? Which pages did they visit? Which campaigns did they interact with? Which emails did they open? But give me that information automatically. Because right now, yes, you can absolutely do that. The data is already in the portal and I can go and look at that. But I have to do it almost manually or have multiple reports to be able to get the one output that I need. So I would love to see that reverse engineering to be able to do it backwards from the bottom of the funnel back to the top and see what's worked for the people that have converted for us.
Absolutely. And so we referenced there the kind of content piece, the data piece, and I think you've spoken well there around the ability for HubSpot to be telling you things that you didn't know, right? And giving you learnings and takeaways as to ultimately how you can win more customers, how you can win kind of larger customers. The the third piece which you touched on is around the automation side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've seen HubSpot's kind of recent investment in Bardeen, which is a kind of a automation integration tool, which at a very high level shows that HubSpot are very invested in this. They're investing in companies who are focusing on automation. Um, Alongside that, we also have ChatSpot, the tool that Dharmesh has been working on for the last 6 months or so, which is built in HubSpot. It's available to use. People can use it to do a ton of different automation pieces, from creating a contact to um, to other pieces. How do you see that play out of the automation side of HubSpot? It feels like we're very early still, even though kind of a lot
Yeah.
has been done. What do you see? I guess maybe the kind of 24-month landscape of that in the future.
Yeah, I think when it comes to AI and automation, I think the focus on that side has been on the sales rather than the marketing, more around automating outreach and putting together the right message for different industries, different people, and doing that again automatically. So I think there's going to be a change there. I'm also very keen to see how other external partners from HubSpot are going to be integrating with HubSpot, because we already see, for example, even Zapier is now talking about integrations with HubSpot that involve AI tools. So I think there's going to be a lot of AI support coming from other entities as well outside of HubSpot. In terms of automation in HubSpot, I mean, we already have a ton of tools that we're using, but again, it's taking out that human element. So I'll begin to see, for example, how we do right now A/B testing, or how we work with programmable emails, right? I posted recently about that. We did this whole custom module for a client recently with programmable emails, because we know there are cases of organizations where they have different combination of data that they want to address in an email. Like real estate is a good example of that. Say someone will be interested in different size properties and different locations, and there's a lot of variables for a marketer to manually do these combinations, these hundreds or thousands of combinations, and create a personalized email. Now, we've done that module and we've pretty much set up, predefined the rules for what the programmable module is showing to the audience. I would love to see AI doing that automatically, where you have an AI module that looks at these combinations and looks at the context preferences and then tells you, I think this is what you should do, or automatically shows the right content taken from your website, because it knows that the prospect has looked at those pages and then looked at those properties. I think that's going to be amazing to see. Is it going to happen in the next 24 months? I don't know. Fingers crossed it does. But for now, I think, as I said, we're scratching the surface, and even the things that we're experimenting with, I think they're going to make a difference. Maybe not so much yet on the conversions and the prospects, but at least from an operational point of view, how efficiently or how quickly we can put this together. Absolutely, yes. But still, we need to take that with a grain of salt and make sure that we review the outputs of the AI tools, because it's still learning, right? And everybody says that around AI machine learning, you have to teach it how to do things, and you have to be patient with it.
Absolutely, and Darren, our CEO, has spoken kind of openly around the future tense of HubSpot being a tool where you can essentially create, like an operating kind of a documented operating system behind it to dictate, if we're going to run a webinar, what are the kind of 18 different elements from a landing page, thank you page, emails, etc. Given how different every company runs a webinar, it's impossible for you at the moment to be able to say to something like ChatSpot or OpenAI integrated with HubSpot, build me a webinar program, because there's so many different variables. But maybe in the future there's kind of an element of I guess partners like us working with companies to build out this really detailed, documented kind of operating system, so that when you do say create me a webinar program, or do say create me a campaign, it's actually putting information from there, rather than thinking kind of in the wider, okay, how does a webinar work? I guess, do you kind of follow that? Is that something that you think is realistic for kind of HubSpot to be building in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I think there's no ceiling on what we can do with the AI tools. Um, so I look forward to exploring that and seeing how it works. But I think there needs to be some prioritization, right? So it's all about the value that we're getting out of these tools. Again, I would hate for us marketeers to be using something or for a company to be saying, oh, we have to use AI tools for the sake of it. It's all about the value you're getting. It's just a tool and it's how we use it. I think that's a very, very important aspect, not just to be, yes, be open-minded, definitely about the trend, and be thoughtful about how it can be used. But let's see how it goes. Yeah, I think the ability, obviously, to scan all those pages for a webinar and to tell you what's worked best, again, it's something that you could do manually now, but to have that within minutes, to have that information within minutes can be quite powerful. No doubt about it.
For sure. Um, okay, so that was a whirlwind, Maria, of kind of AI inside and outside of HubSpot, and a lot of thoughts for kind of moving forward, how people should approach this, how we should kind of think about the what is not a revolution at the moment, of AI. I guess to close this and kind of bring this to an end, we we spoke up at the start around those early adopters diving into every single AI tool at the moment. Trying everything, understanding what works, what doesn't. There's also people, maybe taking a slightly more of a step back and kind of evaluating the landscape and understanding and trying to kind of pinpoint exactly when maybe they make a move, a little bit more into using different systems or purchasing different pieces of software. What advice would you give to kind of marketing leaders at the moment who either are diving in or are taking that step back and trying to understand when they should kind of make a play, into the AI world?
I think we should definitely be doing our research and having a purpose for using the AI tool. So, yes, we can experiment and have fun and be open-minded about the uses. I definitely think we should be looking into that and keeping an eye on what is happening in the industry. Um, However, again, when it comes to practical applications, I wouldn't rush into using a tool just for the sake of using a tool. I would be careful to make sure that there's a human element, there's a human involvement, basically making sure that is being reviewed, the output is being reviewed. Uh, but I think we should have fun with it. I think early adopters, if we look again at marketing automation, those were the people that really won by using this tool. So I wouldn't be skeptical or stay back, but just make sure you get it, it is right for your company and what you are doing. So yeah, a little bit of both. I guess I'm kind of in the middle, in a gray zone of like,
Yeah,
yes, you want to try it, but you don't want to be too much into it as well.
absolutely. As you're talking there, I think actually we've had a very good example recently where we were testing a couple of different podcast recording tools. So we're using Squadcast at the moment to record this. Now we were testing a tool, sorry, called Riverside. Now part of that was actually it had a kind of a video snippet AI generated tool in the background of it. So you finish a podcast, it pulls out what it thinks are the kind of core pieces of that podcast and creates different, video snippets for you. Now, the very first time we used it, I thought that's awesome. It's think about the manual work that's kind of taken out of the equation here and really kind of increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our marketing team. However, the pieces it pulled out obviously weren't quite the podcast snippets that we were looking for. So, ultimately our team are then going back in, actually identifying which videos we want to pull from it, which snippets we want to pull from it. So I guess from what you're saying, that's a very good example of probably in 6 to 12 months or, maybe longer, as that algorithm is improving and the machine is learning and this kind of thing, those things may improve. But right now, it's good to maybe just test and understand where you can build that into your marketing team, build that into your marketing workflow in the future.
Yeah, and another part that we didn't really discuss is the copyrights and the legal aspect of AI, right? And the reason why I always try to take a backseat on that one because I'm not a lawyer and there are so many different legal implications depending on which tool you're using, what you are using it for. But there is a massive discussion as well around copyrights, as I said, like the legal right to be able to use data, where it's taken, like when it comes to content, is it original or is it scraped from another source that you might not be aware of? So there are a lot of other things as well that we need to be considering when we're using these tools. That we would advise anyone who's using these tools, we need to look at, just read the small print, as they always say, like about data security, about copyrights. Make sure you consult with your legal team to before you start using those tools.
Absolutely, very good advice, especially in the world of kind of, as this is built into HubSpot more and more, what sits in HubSpot against kind of, what sits out of HubSpot and the information you're giving a tool like ChatGPT. Um, Fantastic, Maria. I think that brings us to a close. As I said, that was a whirlwind, but a whirlwind of fantastic insight, information. Um, as you referenced, this revolution maybe isn't here just yet, but I look forward to maybe touching base with you in three months or 6 months to see how that opinion has changed. Thank you to all our listeners. As ever, I encourage everyone to subscribe if you're enjoying the content. But Maria, thank you very much for joining us on the latest episode.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.